Dealing with death in its many forms is part of the job for the police.
That somebody lost their life, and for me, that's just completely tragic.
And when innocent people die, investigating the cause of death and those responsible involves specialist teams.
You just step up there for me? Take a seat for us.
I'm never going to forget it, and it should have never happened. It didn't need to happen. I always wanted to be in the police from a little kid, and traffic has always been my interest, so to be able to be on traffic feels like a childhood dream.
At 8 p.m. on Saturday, the 11th of June, 2022, Sergeant Gladwin is on patrol when he hears of a serious accident in Moreton-in-Marsh.
Initially, the information was quite limited that there had been a motorcyclist hit by a car and CPR was being given. At the time, I was about 30 minutes away, so as I was getting there, more and more information was coming in, which was making it sound worse and worse.
Fortunately, Inspector James O'Neill of Gloucester Constabulary's response team is nearby.
I knew that I was probably going to be the closest officer to that, so I grabbed the defibrillator off the wall of the police station and jumped in my car and headed straight off to it.
Motorcyclists are 40 times more likely to die in an accident than car drivers. In 2020, an average of 6 motorcyclists died every week on Britain's roads. Within 10 minutes of the call, Inspector O'Neill arrives at the scene.
And so as I pulled into Moreton-in-Marsh, I can only describe it as chaos. There was people everywhere.
I need this whole road shut off. No cars through, either way.
I could see the BMW just over the double roundabout was crashed into a parked car on the offside. There was a chap lying in the road who I assumed was the motorbike rider, who had a crowd gathered around him, several of which appeared to be performing CPR on him.
There's no ambulance on scene and I've got members of the public holding traffic.
The control room then informs Inspector O'Neill that the driver of the crashed BMW had tried to flee the scene, but been stopped by members of the public.
As he went through him, we all jumped on it.
I ran over to assist, and they identified myself as a police officer and took charge of the male on the floor.
Calm yourself down. Calm yourself down, all of you. We've got him now.
Put some handcuffs on him and explained that he was under arrest.
Meanwhile, Sergeant Gladwin is still on his way listening to updates on the radio from Inspector O'Neill.
I could immediately hear it in his voice when he attended the scene that this was out of the ordinary and this was a high-pressure situation.
Inspector O'Neill starts to take control. The scene is chaotic.
Yeah, Charlie M2, all in order. The male's compliant, he's in the back of my car. Apparently this 5th round of CPR on this male, it's not looking good. Anyone that's actually seen anything, if you hang around the Black Bear, we'll get your details as soon as I can.
That's the only place they know where they've jumped out.
Thank you very much.
On the ground, the motorcyclist still isn't responding to the CPR. And Inspector O'Neill needs backup.
I had members of the public putting road closures on for me at both ends of the road to try and stop traffic from driving through the village, because it was really clear to me at that point that this, if it wasn't going to be a fatal, was going to be a very serious injury collision. And then your mind goes into evidence gathering mode.
We saw the car coming past us earlier. It was probably going at least 90, 100 miles an hour, shot right past us and 3 other cars.
No worries, mate. What's your name?
I seen the motorbike go round the roundabout to the left.
Yeah.
And he went straight into him. I seen the guy on the motorbike go in the air. I seen the bike go in the air.
At this point, there were at least a dozen members of the public who had approached me and said that they'd seen what had happened. I had, fortunately, managed to grab the landlord of one of the pubs just off the high street and had asked him to keep all of the witnesses together in that pub so that they were all in one place.
30 minutes after the collision, the ambulance and Sergeant Gladwin of the road's policing unit get to the scene.
Driver,
Is it?
right.
He tried to run away.
Yeah, that's fine. He's been arrested. What for? Serious injury, collision for the time being. That mini roundabout is first point of impact. He's hit him on that roundabout and then it's a come to rest there.
Sergeant Gladwin immediately breathalyses the suspect.
They gave a positive reading that he was over the limit, a reading of 45, the legal limit being 35. So he needed to get taken to custody ASAP.
The suspect is arrested.
How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Okay, just to confirm what you're under arrest for, okay? You're under arrest for dangerous driving that's caused serious injury, okay? You understand? How is he?
Yeah.
I think he's going to die looking at it.
The investigation is now the remit of Sergeant Gladwin and the Roads Policing Unit.
Yeah.
There was a passenger,
Yeah, exactly.
and I've got a photo of him.
I was told by James that another male had been detained by some of our other colleagues just further up the road.
Passenger was stuck in the car.
Okay.
He didn't go anywhere.
No worries.
He was stuck, totally stuck. We got him out because it was smoking.
Could you do me a favour?
Yeah.
Your evidence is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Can you stay by the black bear?
So we had two people that they had arrested at the time, potentially for causing this dangerous driving incident.
The second person is quickly established as the passenger. As the paramedics are desperately trying to save the motorcyclist's life, he's declared dead at the scene.
That's the point where the whole thing changes. You see the mood change. You see the impact it has on those paramedics or the ambulance people who are working, and then that's the point that we have to then step in and it becomes an investigation.
What's your first name, please?
The driver is arrested once more for the far more serious offence of death by dangerous driving.
We'll get a paramedic to come and check him over now before he gets anywhere, otherwise he'll just be straight to hospital.
Forensic collision investigator Chris Hobday is called to the scene to start gathering vital evidence.
We will laser scan, so we obtain a 3D model of the scene so I can take measurements. I could see various marks on the road surface that began at a mini roundabout, and the marks continued for a distance of around about 40 metres. We scene mark, so we mark up the scene, and we'll do that with road studs, we'll do that with paint, we'll do that with forensic cones. I will complete walkthroughs on video. Effectively, if those videos are played, it takes that person into the scene.
Officers quickly identify the motorbike rider as 54-year-old local man, Mike Molina.
The overriding feelings that I've got as a result of this incident is one of sadness. It's so completely tragic and unnecessary.
The driver is taken to police headquarters, where he fails a second breath test and is charged with causing death by dangerous driving.
Word doesn't take long to get around in a small town that someone's injured or been killed. So the last thing I wanted to do was the family to find out through other people that this has happened. So we deploy what's called family liaison officers to support families.
The family liaison officer contacted is PC Carrie Matthews.
I was there to support the family through the next phases of the investigation and to deliver as much information as I could to them so that they could begin to understand and process what had happened.
She calls into the victim's home to meet Mike Molina's wife.
She was utterly devastated. She cried and cried and cried. She knew already that something was wrong because Michael hadn't come home. So he'd just gone round the corner to fill his motorbike up at the local petrol station, and he'd been gone more than half an hour, and it doesn't take more than half an hour. She talked a lot about the support he gave her and how dependent she was on him and how they spent every minute of every day together. They were best friends and life companions, and they've been married for many years. And she talked quite openly about the sense of loss and the impact that was going to have on her life going forward.
The investigation team then begins to run background checks on the suspect and discover he's a foreign national with no ties to the UK. This is a potential issue.
Such a serious incident. He's always going to be a flight risk. And the last thing I wanted was this person to leave the country whilst we're investigating this and never see him again.
They have less than 24 hours to get the suspect charged and remanded into custody, as they are worried he may flee the country.
We didn't have the full CCTV. With it being a Saturday night into a Sunday, the shops weren't open, so it wasn't evidence that we could easily get hold of. To be able to build this picture up to show to the court the seriousness of this nature, why we thought the driver was a flight risk.
On Monday the 13th of June, at Cheltenham Magistrates Court, the request to remand the suspect to prison is heard.
This was such a unique situation that never in my career have we seek to remand someone the next day after a fatal collision.
Thanks to a huge team effort, they succeed.
We've got what we needed to do to make sure that this person didn't flee the country.
Now the case is handed over to PC Shelley Holloway at the Serious Collisions Investigation Team, who takes the lead. They have 1 month until it comes to trial to amass enough evidence to convict.
When I took the case on the Monday morning, my job then is to explore all the evidential avenues, including CCTV, speaking to witnesses, forensic evidence. We really needed to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he was the driver and place him in that driver's seat.
PC Shelley Holloway has a mammoth task ahead of her, to pull all the elements together so the suspect can't argue his innocence in court.
That required us to look at CCTV, contact other witnesses that didn't necessarily come forward at the time, who'd taken photographs of the occupants of the car before they got out. I then trawled back on other CCTV from the start of their journey to see if we can identify him as the driver at the time of the collision.
PC Holloway starts by interviewing the passenger.
He described a pub that he'd been in with the driver at the time for about 4 hours beforehand. And when our video and imaging department went to the pub, they were able to locate CCTV of the two of them in there buying drinks.
The CCTV showed the suspect buying 8 pints of beer over a 4-hour period.
That was really important and would prevent him coming up with any defence in the future as to not being aware that he'd drunk that much or that his drinks had been spiked, because we could show, well, no, you're in there purchasing this lager yourself.
She then begins to trace his journey towards Moreton in Marsh.
From other CCTV that we'd found from a petrol station forecourt, we were able to identify other witnesses. And one of those was an Asda delivery van. And that van was fitted with CCTV and captured the subject vehicle overtaking it on the entry to the village.
This footage is massively important.
I enlisted the help of a forensic expert witness to analyse that footage, to tell us what speed the car was doing at certain points.
The expert begins by viewing the footage frame by frame, and then calculates the distance the car travels from one frame to the next, giving him the precise speed.
When the footage from the Asda delivery truck was examined, he was shown to be doing 90 miles per hour. The vehicle was estimated to have been doing 100 miles per hour by one witness and overtaken a long line of traffic by another witness and narrowly avoiding a head-on collision with an oncoming car. When he passed the Esso service station on the high street, he was also doing 90 miles per hour.
Then officers come across perhaps the most damning bit of dashcam footage.
Oh my God!
The dashcam was analysed and he was shown to be doing 66 miles per hour at the point of impact in a 20-mile-an-hour zone. That motorcyclist stood no chance. That this was going to be the end result, regardless of where it happened. It was only a matter of time, driving at 3 times the speed limit in a residential area.
Alongside the weight of CCTV evidence, PC Holloway gathers 30 witness accounts of the fatal collision.
It was very clear that this incident was deeply distressing to everybody that was there, and they couldn't believe what they'd just seen.
The statements make for harrowing reading.
I lived and breathed this case, and there were moments that upset me. I would go home and try and decompress from it all, but it's deeply upsetting. It upset me. I did spend some time at home, crying about it.
3 weeks into the investigation and a court date fast approaching, PC Holloway is determined to get justice for the family.
The CPS gave us some instructions about what they would expect in preparation for sentence. And one of those things was a video of all of the CCTV stitched together. It basically incorporated all the evidence that we'd obtained and all the forensic expert witness evidence in one video playable format.
The prosecution also has forensic collision expert Chris Hobday's evidence from the scene.
I submitted a detailed specialist statement to the Crown Prosecution Service. I can be challenged as to the evidence. And it's important that we've got, multiple sources of evidence that forensically prove speed, direction of travel, that if I'm challenged in one area, there are other elements of scene evidence that will support the prosecution's case.
Chris prepares a detailed 3D model of exactly what happened.
The product was completed with the distances that the Crown Prosecution Service had asked me to measure. The main conclusions that I drew from the evidence I found were that the collision had taken place on the mini roundabout. The Z4 had heavy braking marks near it, which suggested that it had braked heavily just prior to impact with the deceased.
1 month after the fatal collision, on the 15th of July 2022, the plea hearing takes place at Gloucester Crown Court.
That was a plea of guilty, which meant that a trial was avoided, fortunately for the family. The suspect was very quiet and appeared to be a shadow of his former self, which in a personal way was quite satisfying to see, particularly for the family. He did appear to be quite remorseful, but whether that's remorse at being caught or remorse for his actual actions, we'll never know.
3 months later, on October 7th, the drink driver is sentenced at Gloucester Crown Court.
The maximum available sentence for this offence was 14 years in prison. The judge, when he summed up his sentence, actually passed a sentence of a starting point of 11 years.
But then the judge takes into account the mitigating circumstances.
He got given a significant reduction in his sentence for an early guilty plea, and then he was allowed a couple of other deductions for good behaviour, the fact that this was the first time he's ever been arrested, and those sorts of things. And he ended up having a sentence of 6 years in prison and a 5-year ban when he leaves prison.
Mike Molina's family reacts to the news.
The family were just devastated. I think they were disappointed, is probably the word. They were struggling to find the words to express how inadequate that sentencing seemed for what they've been through and what they continue to go through to this day.
Mike Molina's tragic and senseless death affected everyone involved.
This collision will stay with me through my entire career. It was so impactful on the whole community that I'm never going to forget it.
The two chaps in the BMW who were the cause of this collision, through their recklessness and their actions, that somebody lost their life. And for me, that's just completely tragic.
The family were just utterly devastated and wanted something good to come out of this, and that was for people to think before they get in the car, to not drink at all before they drive.
Death caused by recklessness is tragic, but when detectives investigate killings perpetrated on purpose, it can become a very personal mission to get justice.
I don't take cases home with me, but some cases do stay with you. This is one of those cases.
Such crimes leave an indelible impression.
Did we have a killer on the loose?
The alarm had been raised by a dog walker who walked along this path. He saw what he believed to be a human body that was in the river. He then walked to Colchester Police Station and reported it.
Royce Hyzak is a former detective from Essex Major Investigations Team, or MIT.
The Major Investigation Team investigate what are known as the MARE offences, M-A-R-E, which was murder, abduction, rape and extortion. So all the really serious crimes that were happening around the county.
The body in the river was one of those cases which went to the top of the Major Investigation Team's list.
This triggered the call out for the SIO, the Senior Investigating Officer. He attended the scene with the Marine unit, who then recovered the body from the river, and also the forensic team led by the crime scene manager. The scene was immediately taped off from both ends, from right up by the road to further on behind me. They then started to recover anything that could possibly have evidence on it.
Even before the post-mortem, detectives can tell the woman has been beaten and sexually assaulted. Over 90% of female murder victims are killed by men. And less than 10% of those murders are committed by strangers. The local press soon get wind of the suspicious death by the river. Emily Parsons was a young reporter at the time and remembers the case and police investigation.
Time of this case, I was the crime reporter for the Colchester Gazette. I covered anything and everything that involved the emergency services. If it had a blue light, it was mine. You get the reports of a body in the river and describing it as, I think he said it was like a mannequin, which stuck in my mind. We didn't have that kind of crime in Colchester. We were waiting for it to be ruled as non-suspicious.
But for Roy, the scene was undeniably suspicious.
When I first attended, I could see straight away that none of the grass had been flattened. None of the bushes had been disturbed. This immediately told me that this offence was not committed by a lone offender. If one person alone had been involved, I would have expected the grass and the bushes to have been flattened and disturbed. However, with two people, it became quite obvious that the body had been picked up by her wrists and her ankles, and they had literally thrown her into the centre of the river. This offence was committed by at least two people.
The woman's body is examined by pathologist Dr. David Rouse.
There were a number of impacts to the head with splits around the eye, so typical blunt trauma. You've got bruising around the scalp, then there's some marks around the buttocks from vegetation, so clearly her bottom's been on the ground. And if obviously for them thinking with sexual activity, tying all the injuries together, there's some limited, what's known as defensive injuries. In other words, they're probably rendered fairly incapable fairly quickly. She was alive at the time that she went into the river because she's inhaling the water. So therefore, it's a combination of head injuries and drowning.
The post-mortem confirms that this was a brutal killing, and the discovery that the victim was alive when dumped in the river makes this crime all the more harrowing.
2 days after the body had been discovered, the police identified the body as that of 24-year-old Helen Morn, who was a young mum who lived in Colchester with her partner. I was only a couple of years younger, and it makes you second-guess everything. Your initial reaction is there somebody on the loose we need to be careful of? And is this something to be afraid of, to be scared of or cautious of?
Emily Parsons looked into Helen's background to report on the story.
The information that the police gave us, it was a tragic tale about Helen. She'd had a difficult start to life. She'd been in the care system as a child. She had a loving adopted family or foster family. She had this future with her partner who she was happy with. She had her whole life ahead of her. At 24, it was cut short.
Investigators waste no time looking into every aspect of Helen's life in a procedure called victimology.
When we look at the victim and we go into great detail, build up a picture of their lifestyle, who they associate with, who they live with. Helen, by all accounts, speaking to her family, she was a very bubbly 24-year-old young lady who had a zest for life. She enjoyed socialising locally in the various pubs and bars.
Detectives quickly established she lived with her partner. As over 60% of femicides are committed by current or ex-partners, Helen's boyfriend immediately becomes a person of interest to the police.
When a murder happens, we look very closely at the partner and other family members. So often in the past, we have seen people feigning tears, and it turns out, in fact, that they are the person responsible. So it is natural that we look very closely at partners and family.
Our understanding at the time was that police had arrested her partner because eyewitnesses, neighbours had reported seeing him carrying a rolled up carpet over his shoulder and putting it into the boot of his car.
That was a massive red flag to us. Was the body in that? Was he taking her to the river?
Every film you see, there's always a body in that rolled up carpet put in the back of it, and that's where police immediately turned to him and arrested him.
The arrest starts a murder investigation that will ultimately shock the nation.
Was he telling lies? Had he then taken the body to the river? and then had the car burnt or crushed. He had gone from being a person of interest to being our suspect.
Helen's partner, under arrest and under caution, denies any involvement.
When we interviewed the partner, he said that, well, that can't have happened because I don't have that car anymore. We established that her partner was, in fact, laying new carpet at their property. I went to a scrapyard just outside Epping and found some details there about his car having been scrapped. So what he had told us from that point of view had been legitimate.
Those eyewitnesses, whether mistaken or for whatever reason, they were wrong. And it wasn't him.
With the partner no longer a suspect, the police are back to square one. Desperate, they appeal to the public.
We had officers out on the street with photographs of Helen, stopping members of the public, asking them if they'd been in Colchester Town Centre during that weekend. Had they seen Helen? Did they know Helen? But from all of that, we gained nothing. Nobody came forward, which was very, very frustrating.
One hope detectives had was CCTV footage they secured from cameras around Colchester. Perhaps they'd be able to spot Helen and her killer on that fateful night.
At the time, the police had nothing to go on apart from this CCTV that was taken in the dead of night under poor street lights that showed some grainy silhouettes of people who I wouldn't know them if I fell over them in the street. And this was the key to finding Helen's murderer.
Detectives begin piecing together Helen's final hours alive.
On the night that Helen went missing, she went into town, not far from her home. She was able to walk there, and she visited a few of the local pubs. She made a couple of phone calls back to her partner, so he expected to see her later after the pubs had closed. Sadly, that's the last time he spoke to her, and he never saw her alive again. I took over the CCTV inquiry. I literally walked the town centre. I was looking up, I was looking for every camera, possibly cameras that may have been missed. There were cameras from public houses, from shops, from a tyre company, from offices, and indeed the council street cameras.
It's no small task as there is 2,000 hours of footage.
My first job was to break that down and to find out what was going to be useful and what wasn't. This meant sifting through it all, watching it.
Despite the poor quality of the footage, Roy begins to make progress.
When I started to go through all the CCTV, I was quite pleased to find that we had quite a few images of Helen during the evening of Friday, actually going around the town.
Buoyed by his discovery, Roy concentrates on the area near to where Helen's body had been found.
I was very aware that we had a bar that was right on the riverside. This was the bar called Quilters, which was a good 100 yards or so away from the murder scene. Anybody going down to the murder scene would have had to have gone down this route.
But there's an issue.
When I made inquiries with the officers, they had been into Quilters and had looked at their monitor. They said for me not to bother because it was too dark, you couldn't see anything on it. I decided to ignore this advice, and I immediately went down to Quilters and asked him if he would burn off all of their CCTV for the whole weekend onto disc.
On the discs, Helen can be seen clearly enjoying herself, perhaps a bit too much for the bar staff.
Not only did I find Helen inside the bar during the day in full colour and fully identifiable, talking and drinking with other people who all had to be eliminated. Sadly, I could also see her being ejected from bars.
She was doing what 24-year-old women do, and somebody could take advantage of somebody like that, and it's over like that.
Roy and the team spend 4 weeks painstakingly trawling through all the footage.
Having watched so much CCTV of Helen, I really did build up an image of her, both physically and mentally. By the end, I almost felt that I knew her.
While his fellow officers felt Roy was on a wild goose chase, he was sure the camera evidence close to the river could help.
There was some images that I found from the Quilters cameras. It was very, very dark and very hazy. But having looked at all the images I already had of Helen in daylight, confirmed images, I was absolutely convinced that I now had images of Helen walking down the towpath with two males at the time that we felt was significant.
Roy's diligence appears to have paid off. He'd spotted something no one had seen before.
That was when it really kicked in for me, that this was a breakthrough moment. This, to my mind, was Helen being led to her death.
There was a sense of real horror. Did these men know her? If these were two complete strangers preying on a drunk woman on her own late at night, then that was something that was incomprehensible.
Once I had found this image, this very dark, grainy image of Helen with two suspects, I was able to look very, very closely and get an idea of who they were. They certainly appeared to be young, teenage or perhaps early 20s. I could tell from the grainy images that one was wearing what I described as a hooped t-shirt. The other one was clearly wearing a sleeveless shirt or vest. So I now had an idea of what I was looking for. I now had to see if I could find these two suspects in the town centre in daylight so that I could positively get a good look at them and then compare these images to those of the riverbank.
When it looked like the two suspects might be teenagers, the mood of the case changed completely.
There was a breakthrough. The police were getting somewhere. But it brought with it a whole new set of questions and a whole new set of fears. What kind of society and community in town was it where two boys could potentially be responsible?
I found them in front of the multi-storey car park, which actually butts onto the river.
It was the car park where I parked every morning to walk into work. It was very personal.
At the same time, I get another image of Helen walking into the yard at the back of the bar. I see her turn and look towards the river. I can only assume that she's seen the two youths.
The footage continues to reveal the secrets of that night.
I see these two youths. The first one in front, who turned out to be slightly older. Helen was in the centre and the younger boy was behind. Approximately 1.5 hours later, I see the same two boys come back along the riverbank into the yard of the bar. I was now convinced that I had my suspects. I had descriptions of them. I knew their approximate ages, but I had no idea who they were.
The investigation needed to go to the next level, so Roy went to his boss with high hopes.
This was most definitely the eureka moment. As far as I was concerned, it was my job now to convince the senior investigating officer. I really thought that we were going to throw everything now into the identification of these two youths and that this was going to lead to a charge. I thought, I've cracked it.
But Roy's hopes are swiftly shattered.
Unfortunately, he had apparently consulted criminal psychologists who said that it is unlikely that two males would have committed this type of offence. Therefore, logically, my CCTV must be wrong and it could not have been the crucial bit of evidence.
With no other viable suspects or leads, Roy refuses to give up.
Finally, I decided the only way to do it was to print off all of my CCTV images, print them into large A4 photos, display them on our conference room desk, get the SIO to come and look at them and to lead him through them all in an attempt to get him to agree.
His boss is convinced enough to take a chance, see if Roy's theory pans out. Now, all the team needs to do is ID the two youths seen with Helen on the night she died.
We circulated the photographs to the local police stations, particularly in Colchester, for all the officers to look at. And that again brought us nowhere. Nobody knew these two youths, which was a little surprising and disappointing.
The team refused to give up and puts mobile units around Colchester in the hope that somebody might recognise them.
I remember the police set up a hub in the town and they had CCTV playing, and everyone was very willing to help and very willing to talk, but nobody knew anything.
Quite a few people came in, nobody had a clue. No, we don't know them. And now I was very disappointed.
It's beginning to look like Helen's murder might never be solved.
We were just about to give up, and at the last moment, almost before we switched off the television and closed the doors, I saw a group of youths walking along. They saw the police van, and as youths do, they crossed the road to avoid us. I went across the road, stopped them, and said, "Don't worry, lads, you're not in trouble, we just want you to look at some film." They reluctantly came across. I put the CCTV on, and they immediately named both suspects.
These youths identified those two grainy figures because of their unique build, because it was a little and a larger, and they were always together. And they gave police names of teenagers.
We found that one of them was 16. The other one was only 13 years of age.
We thought this was men. To have it identified as potentially two teenagers, one's barely even a teenager, was something that we had never contemplated.
It's extremely rare for suspects so young to be involved in such a horrific killing.
Not only was the SIO sceptical, but many of my colleagues in the office were also. They almost derided me. They said, "What, kids like that, doing this to a girl of that age wouldn't happen." I said, "Well, I've got them on camera. I've got them with Helen. We know that's Helen. We now identified them. Let's give it a run."
Despite reservations from the top brass, the decision is made to arrest both boys. On July 31st, over 2 months after Helen's murder, police raid their homes simultaneously.
The suspect's house, the 13-year-old, was actually very close to the river, and it's quite chilling to think that he went home that night and went to bed knowing that he was overlooking the river where Helen's body was. When we got there, he immediately admitted that he had been there and was involved. But he said that it was the other youth who actually committed the murder, committed the assaults, and threw the body into the river. Another team had gone to the 16-year-old's house. When they arrested him, he virtually said the same thing. He admitted, yes, he had been there. He had been with the other youth, but it was the other youth that had committed the offences, and it was the other youth who had dragged Helen and thrown her into the river. This is what we call a cutthroat defence.
The cutthroat defence is essentially, it wasn't me, it was him. So they both said, I was there, but I didn't do it.
It's good news.
For the police, they knew whether it was one of them, either of them, or both of them, they had their killer.
The whole community is in shock.
These are children who've done this. They're not old enough to drink, they're not old enough to drive. They're kids at 13. Should be riding their bikes with their friends, and instead, they're assaulting and ultimately killing a young woman who had her whole life ahead of her.
The pathologist, Dr. Rouse, endorses Roy's theory.
One said the other dragged her by the ankles, and the other said the other dragged her at the head end. Well, if that was true, then you'd expect drag marks around the ankles or along the bottom. There weren't any. Clearly, they're not telling the truth, and she must have been carried by both of them.
It's up to detectives to prove the pair are lying.
They had admitted that they were there. One of the youths even told us where to find the bottle that had been used to assault Helen with. This was recovered. From that, the forensic side kicked in, and we found both the DNA of Helen and the suspects. So now, to back up our CCTV, their admission of being at the scene, we now have the forensics.
Police then spent 8 months meticulously building their case against the two teams. In April 2008, it comes to trial at Chelmsford Crown Court.
They stuck to their own sides of the stories. Fortunately, the jury saw through that, and they were both found guilty.
I made sure I was down there for that Crown Court verdict. I needed to be part of it. I'd been the reporter who'd covered this crime. I needed that sense of justice for myself as well as for the community. They were convicted a year to the day that Helen's body was discovered, and there was some kind of poetic justice in that. We'd waited so long for those killers to be convicted on the day. It brought a real sense of closure.
A few weeks later, both teenagers are sentenced at the Old Bailey.
The 16-year-old was sentenced to life imprisonment to serve a minimum of 15 years. The 13-year-old was sentenced to 4 years imprisonment with a further 2 years on licence, and then he was ordered to receive psychological help after that.
Roy and his Special Ops Major Investigation Team were lauded for their use of technology to solve the murder.
One of the judges made reference to the fact that CCTV and its use in this case should be heralded across the UK to showcase just how vital CCTV is in catching people at the worst moments.
It was satisfactory to see that they'd got the sentences that we felt that they deserved. It was certainly good from the point of view of the family. It was justice for Helen, but there are no winners.
For Emily and Roy, this is one of those cases it's impossible to shake off.
I think it was her sister, one of her sisters, who said they stole Helen's tomorrows. And that was right. They took her joy, her future, her prospects.
I don't think I'll ever forget the case, and hopefully I won't forget Helen.